Okay, all right, let's get going. Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining this session, and thank you to Kathy and the Ivors Academy for having myself and Songtrust along to present to you today. Really excited to be working together. Kathy and I were just talking a little bit about how all of these kind of Zoom webinars and things, the sort of novelty has worn off a little bit now, and it's obviously holiday season and it's a really nice day, and so thank you, first of all, for logging on and sticking with it. And I very much hope that at some point in the future, we can start doing these sorts of things in person again, so that I can see all of your lovely faces and get to know all of the Ivors Academy members a little bit better. But for now, here we are in my living room. My neighbour likes to do a lot of DIY, so look out for that. And there may also be a couple of cat appearances if we're lucky to make it a bit more interesting, because publishing admin can sometimes be a little bit dry. So yeah, thank you for joining the session. This is going to be about music publishing, and specifically publishing royalties and how you collect them. Now, obviously, in this COVID era that we find ourselves in, it's a really strange time. And, there's a lot to worry about health and family wise. A lot of people are juggling homeschooling with trying to work, dealing with furlough and unemployment, health worries, and so on and so on. And whilst a lot of work and activity is on hold, particularly for artists, obviously, who can't tour and play live at the moment, I know that a lot of artists, songwriters, and their teams are searching for ways to keep money coming in and to direct their energy into positive things. And I think getting publishing royalties flowing and getting song registrations in order is something that a lot of writers and managers finally have time to think about, which is good. It's so important. It's a really positive thing. It's no quick win. I'll explain a little bit that publishing is quite a slow game, and royalties can take a long time to come through. It can take anything from sort of 6 to 12 months, really, from registration to see royalties. But given that a lot of the royalties a writer earns are from streaming and digital sources, we at Songtrust are thankfully quite largely unaffected at the moment. And we're working really hard, at full capacity to help writers keep money coming in this difficult time. So we'll also discount our usual sign-up fee for anyone who wants to open an account at the moment. So if you want to email me afterwards, get in touch, I can provide a discount code for that. And I'll also, during this talk, go into a little bit more detail on how we work. Okay. So personally, I just want to start by saying, and I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues at Songtrust and Downtown Music, when I say that we're really big fans of the Ivors Academy and the work that is done by the team there. So it's really important advocacy and educational work that empowers songwriters and composers. And, at Songtrust, that's exactly what we're about. We share many of the same viewpoints and goals as the Academy. We really want to see writers at any level and at any stage of their career empowered to earn a living and to be appropriately remunerated for their work. So the work that the Academy does with the fixed streaming campaign and with educational sessions and resources for its members are really important. And we do a lot of that sort of work too. Songwriters and composers really need market conditions which allow them to make a living from their work. And they need the education and information so that they can understand their rights and how to collect everything that they're due. Now, I know that the Academy has members at every career stage, so there are going to be people on this call who know the ins and outs of copyright and the fundamental principles of publishing admin, but I do need to cover those basics for those of you who are new to the business. So please bear with me if this talk starts out a little bit basic. Hopefully there are some useful nuggets in here for those of you who already know publishing quite well. I do want to say, though, it's okay if you don't already understand music publishing and what royalties writers might be due and how to collect them. There are certainly people who've been in the industry sort of 20, 30, 40 years who don't fully understand this side of the business. It is really complicated. But if you're a songwriter or a composer and you don't make the effort to do some homework and to understand this area and to get a publisher or a publishing admin company in place, registering your songs around the world, if, for example, you're just with your PRO, which is PRS in the UK, then you will be missing out on royalties that you're due. So thank you for logging on today and for giving this some of your time, and I really hope it's a useful session for everybody watching. So as I go through, I should have mentioned this at the start actually, we have the Q&A function. So if you have any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A rather than the chat. But if you want to introduce yourself in the chat as well, then do go ahead. So I'll do a quick talk, it's probably about 20 minutes, and then I'll come to your questions in the Q&A box. So pop them in there if anything comes to mind. Of course, alternatively, or as well, you can drop me an email afterwards. I'm on lbaker@songtrust.com. I'm the Director of Business Development for the UK and Ireland for Songtrust. And there's my Twitter as well. If you want to troll me, go for it. I also wanted to give you guys a little bit of background about myself too, because there are lots of other things I'm involved with sort of beyond my role at Songtrust that may be of interest that you might want to talk about. So I've been in the music industry 15 years, and I've been on the publishing side of the business at Songtrust now for almost 18 months. Really enjoying working with all of the team and being on the publishing side of the fence, which is a little bit different to what I did before. So immediately before Songtrust, I ran my own consultancy, which was handling music industry events, diversity and marketing. So I did things like I programmed BBC Music Introducing Live, the event at Tobacco Dock, which some of you might have attended. I consulted for the MMF, the Musicians Union. I programmed the Americana Fest UK conference. I was on the programming team at the Great Escape Festival, Liverpool Sound City, and various other things. I'm a board member of the Americana Music Association UK, so big fan of Americana and country music, but also, you know, all sorts of genres. And for the vast majority of my career to date, I was at AIM, the Association of Independent Music, where I was the marketing and events director, and I created the AIM Awards. So in my role there, I was very much working with independent labels, self-releasing artists, and advising them on, you know, the digital world, sync, distribution, international funding, etc., etc. I'm also really passionate about diversity, and I'm really pleased to see the work that the Academy and lots of other trade orgs are doing in this area at the moment. We've got a long way to go in the music industry to become as diverse and inclusive as we should be, and I'm glad that, you know, so many of us are committed to doing that work. I'm on the UK Music Diversity Task Force, and I've written about the gender pay gap and diversity in women in music for lots of different titles. So would love to talk about that and any of the other things I've mentioned. If it's of interest, do get in touch. Okay, so these are the things that I'm going to cover in the talk today. Understanding your rights. So I'm going to start at the very beginning with the two halves of a song. I'm going to break down the composition of a song, outline a little bit about what a publisher does and how that differs from a publishing administrator, understanding mechanical and performance royalties, how are publishing royalties collected, which, you know, is what we do. It's quite complicated behind the scenes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Songtrust and our model and how we can help you to access what you're due. And of course, don't forget, put any questions in the Q&A box. I wanted to start by just flagging this resource because it's free and it's available on our website and it's absolutely brilliant. It's the Modern Guide to Music Publishing. It's about 30 or so pages that really explains in simple terms, or, you know, as simple as you can with music publishing, all of the rights involved, the royalties you're entitled to, how they're collected, and also the creative side of what a music publisher does. So if you really want to understand your rights and how to collect your royalties, then this is a must read. There's also the Song Royalties Guide that the MMF produced as well, which is a really good resource for understanding the complexities of the royalty chains and the different links in it on a global scale. So I definitely recommend doing some reading and accessing these resources that are free. Drop me an email or just search Modern Guide to Music Publishing Songtrust, and you'll be able to download that for free. So I wanted to start with this quote as a bit of context really, which is, more original songs are being written, released and listened to than ever before. I think this is a fact, and it's exciting. You know, it's really good news that this is the case. But of course, it does mean that there is more work than ever to be done in managing the rights of those songs and ensuring that writers get paid what they're due. So with every new composition and recording, a chain of rights and ultimately royalties are earned. So getting these royalties to those who've earned them is an elaborate system which is further complicated by the global network that they touch. And it can be really tough for writers and composers to wrap their heads around how their songs generate income, how music publishing works. And the result is that a huge amount of writers and composers are leaving money on the table. So you should really try as a songwriter to understand your rights and music publishing as well as you can, and be sure to work with a trusted partner, which might be Songtrust, to ensure that you're collecting the royalties that you're due. We are all about, we're really dedicated to making publishing as transparent and understandable as we can for the creator. And I think, you know, historically that hasn't always been the case. And there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of kind of murky grey areas in this world. So as I said, I'm going to start completely at the beginning. So for those of you who are relatively new to songwriting and composing, you know, these are the sort of fundamental principles. And for those of you who've been in the business for a long time, bear with me. So if, for example, you're an artist and you write your own music, if you're writing the music and recording it, then you own two copyrights: the copyright in the composition, the song, and the master copyright, the copyright in the recording. So I'm sure that some of you on this session are both an artist and a songwriter, and others are purely focused on the writing side. It's important to realize that these are two totally separate sets of rights. So for artists, your record label or distributor, like CD Baby, DistroKid, Believe, Proper, etc., will be the people managing and collecting your royalties on the recording side. And that label or distributor will get your music onto streaming services like Spotify, Apple, etc., or even release it on CD or vinyl, and they'll be the people paying you the royalties that you're due on the master side. Now, Songtrust is a publishing administrator, so we're concerned with the composition side and the royalties due to you as the writer of the song. So don't confuse publishing and distribution. If you're the artist and the writer, then you'll want to have both a label or distributor looking after the master side and a publisher or publishing administrator on the composition side. And today I'm going to talk about the rights in the composition and music publishing and the royalties due to the writer. So, music publishing in its purest form refers to the money known as royalties that you can make as a copyright holder of the music that you write. So as soon as you write a song and you put it in a tangible form, like a demo, for example, then the writer is the owner of a copyright. And the rights that they have to do with sharing music. So I'm sure you guys all know this inside out, but you get the right to reproduce the work, to distribute copies of the work, perform the work publicly, make a derivative work, and display the work publicly. Now, what that means in simple terms is that if your song is performed live, if it's played on the radio or TV, if it's streamed, if it's made available on CD, vinyl, etc., all of those things generate royalties. And there's a few types of royalties generated. So these are mechanical, performance, and microsync. And I will talk about these in a little bit more detail in just a moment. So music publisher, as I'm sure many of you know, is essentially there to represent your works as a songwriter. And there are sort of two halves to what a music publisher does. One side of their responsibilities is the global registration of songs and the collection of royalties from collection societies all over the world, and also from digital services like YouTube, Spotify, etc. And this is called publishing administration, and that's what we do at Songtrust. The other side of what a publishing company does is referred to as creative. It's the creative services. So this means getting their writers' songs syncs on TV shows, films, ads, games, etc. And also the A&R aspect. So putting the writers into sessions with other writers or pitching their songs to labels to be recorded by major artists, for example. So a publisher is doing those two sort of quite distinct, separate sets of things. And some music publishing companies that you guys will have heard of, obviously there's the majors, so there's Sony ATV, Warner Chappell, and Universal Music Publishing. And then, you know, much like in the label world, there are thousands of indies. So Downtown Music Publishing, which is part of the same group as Songtrust, Notting Hill Music, Music Sales, BMG, Books Music, Peer Music, Westbury, so on and so on. There's lots of independent publishers. And so if you sign a publishing deal, you should be getting administration services and also the added creative services. Again, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but just to cover off sync in a little bit more detail. When a song is synced to a moving image, so sync is when it's used in an advert, film, TV show, computer game, etc. And how this works is that songs are chosen by a music supervisor who will deal with the publisher to clear the rights in the composition, and they'll deal with the label to clear the master rights. So a music publisher, as part of their job, will cultivate relationships with music supervisors so that they can pitch songs for sync, and they'll negotiate the fee and the terms when a song is going to be used. So if you don't have a publishing deal, or if you're working with a publishing administrator where sync isn't included, then what you can do instead is appoint a sync agent to represent your catalogue and find those opportunities for you. And that's what a lot of Songtrust clients do very successfully. So moving on to the royalty collection side in a little bit more detail. This slide really explains the royalties on the composition side, and these are the royalties that Songtrust helps you to collect. So a songwriter will be due mechanical royalties every time their song is streamed, downloaded, made available on a physical format, whether that's CD, vinyl, cassette, and so on. Performance royalties, they'll be due anytime their song is played on radio or TV, streamed, or if it's performed live at a gig. So don't get confused. When a song is streamed, say on Spotify or Amazon, Apple Music, etc., it generates both a performance royalty and a mechanical royalty for the writer. And, you know, many, even very well-known writers and artists are only collecting their performance royalties, not their mechanicals, because they aren't actually registered with the mechanical societies. So a lot of money is being left on the table. 15 to 20 years ago, it was somewhat possible to manage the rights of the song on your own, but with the emergence and now dominance of streaming, particularly around the world, it's extremely challenging, if not impossible, to do on your own. And it's a significant royalty stream. So that's why we built Songtrust. You know, your music could be being streamed and listened to all over the world. So just to reiterate what I just explained, really, performance royalties, they're generated whenever a song is publicly broadcast on radio or TV, in restaurants, bars, etc., and when a song is performed live. So these royalties, of course, are going to be impacted quite considerably by this year's lockdown. There's going to be a financial hit for songwriters and composers, which, you know, due to how long it takes to collect and pay out royalties, is really going to be felt towards the end of this year and early next year. And we really don't know how long this is going to continue for and if we'll be going in and out of lockdown again in the future. So definitely performance royalties are going to be impacted by this strange COVID time. Performance royalties are also generated when your music is streamed and also from interactive radio. And mechanical royalties are generated whenever a copy of a song is made. So that's when a CD is produced or a song is downloaded or streamed, or vinyl. And there are statutory mechanical license royalty rates which apply for physical products and for downloads, and they vary depending on which country the song is being distributed in. Streaming rates are not statutory, and each service has its own calculation to determine the rates, in addition to their own multiple factors which will affect each song's rate. So quite often writers or their representatives will say to me, you know, how much is 1 million streams worth for the songwriter? But it's such an impossible question to answer with any kind of level of accuracy, because it will depend on which country the listener was in and whether they were on the free tier or the paid tier, and, you know, which streaming platform they were using, and lots of factors. So it's very difficult to answer. Microsync, this is what we call royalties from YouTube. And with YouTube, we can generally collect as far back as when the song was first monetized on the platform, which is usually when it's uploaded by the label or distributor. So I'm sure you will have all heard the term writer share and publisher share, and depending on which society a writer is affiliated to, there are different rules regarding how much a publisher is allowed to collect directly on behalf of its clients. So in the UK, Australia and the US, for example, a publisher can collect 100% of mechanical royalties for its writers directly, but only 50% of the performance royalties generated. The other 50% goes directly to the writer as the writer's share of performance royalties. So when you have a publisher or a publishing administrator like Songtrust in place, they'll be collecting 100% of your mechanical royalties for you and 50% of your performance royalties. The other 50% of performance royalties you'll be receiving directly from your PRO, so PRS if you're in the UK. In Europe, the percentages are different. I think the sort of international differences are what makes publishing and this world so complicated. It's a very complex global picture. So I've explained how royalties are generated when songs are streamed, downloaded, reproduced onto physical formats, performed live, played on the radio, etc. But how do they actually get collected and reach the writer? Well, every country or territory has either a performing rights organisation, a PRO, and a mechanical rights society, or multiple organisations in the case of the USA, or a CMO, which is an organisation that collects and pays out both performance and mechanical royalties. So in the UK, as I'm sure you know, we have the Performing Rights Organisation, PRS, and the society that deals with mechanicals, MCPS. So to be sure that you collect all the royalties due to you globally, you would want to be a member of these societies in every country, as you could be getting streams and plays all over the world in the digital age. Songtrust, as a publishing administrator, we've got 53 direct society affiliations around the world, which allows us to collect royalties for our songwriter clients from about 95% of the music publishing market. There are some territories which either simply don't have collection societies, or there's issues with corruption, or it's just extremely hard to collect from. But we're always working hard to add new territories, and in the last year or so, we've started collecting from the Ukraine, Barbados, Croatia, lots of new territories that we didn't previously have covered. So these direct relationships allow us not only to collect our writers' royalties as quickly and accurately as possible, but with as few fees as possible because we're direct. So if you're using a publishing administrator like Songtrust, you'll have access to your global royalties, both mechanical and performance, and you'll no longer need to register your titles anywhere yourself, even to receive the writer's share of your royalties. Through our direct relationships with those 53 societies and pay sources globally, we currently collect from over 150 countries and territories. So these are just some of those many societies around the world that I just mentioned. And it's really important that songwriters understand why it simply isn't enough for them to just affiliate their songs with their domestic home collection society if they've got activity anywhere else in the world. So often managers or writers will say to me, but don't I get my international royalties through my PRO's reciprocal agreements? Well, it's not enough to rely on those agreements. So a reciprocal agreement is a contract, usually between two societies in different territories, to collect on behalf of each other's members. So for example, PRS might have reciprocal agreements with ASCAP and so on to collect performance royalties. But while these deals are useful in ensuring that a songwriter's songs could potentially collect royalties for uses in other countries, it's not guaranteed. The societies don't actually register your songs directly with the other societies. It's a manual data matching process that goes on. So if you want to be sure to receive your royalties from wherever in the world you're earning them, then you want to be sure you work with either a publisher or a publishing administrator who has direct relationships with those societies all around the world and will actually register your works for you. So most publishing administrators like Songtrust dedicate a lot of time to creating these relationships around the world and ensuring that their songwriters' songs are properly registered, tracked, and collecting all royalties earned. And this is why songwriters work with publishing administrators who have direct relationships with pay sources all over the world, to make registration and royalty collection quicker and easier. And then the writer doesn't have to worry about that. You know, they can focus on what they do best, the songwriting. I want to just outline a couple of reasons why writers and composers sometimes don't get the royalties that are due to them. A couple of things that can go wrong that cause royalties not to be received. So the first is incorrect split information. So at the very heart of collecting publishing royalties is knowing and agreeing and correctly recording splits when songs are co-written with other writers. So if you're a writer writing a song with other writers, then you need to agree right at the beginning exactly who has what percentage of the song, and the shares must add up to 100%. If claims surpass 100% on a song, then it leads to counterclaims and the song can go into conflict at societies and no one gets paid until it's resolved. So, I mean, especially if you think about things like if you have 3 songwriters on a song and you're splitting it equally, you need to agree who's having the 33.34% rather than 33.33, because, you know, if all 3 writers try to register 33.34%, that's over 100% and you might not get paid. So this is a really important detail. Split sheets are a great tool, and at Songtrust we have a free template split sheet available to download on our website. So again, just drop me an email or Google Songtrust split sheet and we can make that available for you. And then you just agree in the studio or wherever the song is written, who has what percentage, and record it on a split sheet and everyone signs it. Get this sorted at that early stage. You don't want to have a hit and then try and agree the splits because it's going to get ugly. So drop me an email if any of you would like our free split sheet. Another common reason why writers miss out on royalties due to them is if they don't register their songs correctly in time. So it's really important to be aware that there are time limits to collecting your royalties. And again, as with everything in publishing, it varies somewhat by country, but generally you have up to 3 years to claim the publishing royalties that a society is holding for you if your songs haven't been registered or have been incorrectly registered. So there's a thing called the black box, and after 2 to 3 years, unclaimed royalties go into the black box and they're released to the society's members based on market share. So if you leave it too long, there'll be royalties that, you know, were due to you that you might not be able to access. Okay, so a little bit more about us, who we are, what we do. Songtrust was created about 9 years ago now with the aim of giving songwriters who didn't have a publishing deal a way to collect their global publishing royalties. So as I've kind of outlined in this talk, unlike a music publishing company, when you use Songtrust, you don't sign over any rights. You stay fully independent. You just register your songs with us and we will collect your publishing royalties for you from all over the world. And we take a percentage administration fee on what we collect. So it's a really writer-friendly, flexible and transparent DIY solution for making sure you get the royalties that you're owed if your song has been streamed, played live, played on the radio, etc. And of course, in the digital age, that could be from anywhere in the world. As I said, we're specialists in publishing admin, which is the very boring industry term for collecting your publishing royalties globally. And we're actually the leading company globally offering publishing administration. I think one of the unique things about Songtrust as well is how we provide real-time detailed data on all the royalties that you're earning. So at any time you can log into your Songtrust dashboard and see all the royalties that we've received for you. You can see which song they're for, when they were earned, which country they've come from, which society they've been received through. And this is always updating. And that kind of information and level of transparency just hasn't always been shared with writers and composers typically in publishing. It's a really great example, I think, of how new models like Songtrust are putting the information and the power back into the hands of the creators. So we have 300,000 songwriters registered with us globally and over 2 million copyrights that we've registered with our many pay sources. So what happens is a songwriter or composer will open an account, and then they will register their songs on the Songtrust dashboard, which is very simple and easy to do. I'm happy to give people demos if you get in touch. And we will register those songs with PRS and MCPS and all of their equivalent collection societies that we have direct affiliations with around the world, and with digital services like YouTube and so on. We'll then collect your royalties from all over the world and pay them through to you. And as I mentioned, we're collecting from 150 countries and territories via 53 deals with collection societies and pay sources. And via the Songtrust dashboard, of course, you can see loads of data on, where your song has been streamed, played, etc., and what money we will be paying through to you and when. And writers who are registered with Songtrust receive their royalties quarterly. I think what's really interesting about Songtrust is that, as well as those kind of early stage writers that we were set up to enable, we now actually have a client base that includes a lot of really high earning writers as well, who've written for, the faces you see on the screen now. So Songtrust writers, have written for Drake, Lady Gaga, Chance the Rapper, lots of big hits. And, in those cases, they're choosing Songtrust rather than a traditional deal, often because they want to hold on to their copyright and just give away a percentage admin fee on what's collected. So we have a really broad church of clients across all musical genres. And this table is just a really useful summary of how a publishing admin deal with Songtrust differs from a traditional publishing deal. So deal length, you can cancel at any time after 1 year with Songtrust, whereas a publishing deal locks you in typically for a much longer period. We pay out quarterly, 4 times per year, which is more than is traditional in publishing. And you can actually choose which songs you want to register with Songtrust. You're not obliged to give us everything that you write, as you usually are within a publishing deal. You keep 100% of your copyright, and we don't take sync rights, so you keep control of your sync rights. You can work with an agent, or you can look after sync yourself. And we take a 15% admin fee on publishing royalties administered, and the client receives 85%. And as I mentioned, we're very tech focused and client centered, and you get a lot of data and information through our really user friendly dashboard. So if any of you want to start collecting your publishing royalties through Songtrust, then as I mentioned, we are happy to sort out a discount code on our registration fee. So just drop me an email for that. And then it's very simple. You visit songtrust.com, you register your songs via the dashboard. If your songs are being performed live, which I guess they're not at the moment during COVID, but they may be in the future, then you can submit set lists via the dashboard so that you collect your royalties from live performances as well. And we'll do the rest. We'll handle getting them registered through all of our different affiliations and collecting those royalties for you. And as I mentioned, don't forget, download the free template split sheet for when you're co-writing, download the Modern Guide to Music Publishing. It explains the sort of publishing world in a lot better detail and clearer terms than perhaps I've done today. And it's a really great free resource. They're both on songtrust.com. And there's my details again, and the Songtrust website and Twitter if you want to get in touch with any questions or if you're interested in working with Songtrust. I should mention as well, there's a lot of great webinars that we do on all sorts of areas, from songwriting to all kinds of things. So definitely check out the kind of educational part of the Songtrust website too. And that's it. That's my talk. I know publishing admin can be a dry world, but hopefully there was something in there that was useful for everybody. And I'm now going to have a quick look, see if there's anything in the Q&A. So if you haven't already asked a question, feel free to chuck one in there now. There's actually no questions this time. Last time I did one of these talks, there was hundreds, and the Q&A went on and on and on, and everyone got very hungry. Oh, here we go. They're starting to come through. Thank you. What if we have already registered our songs with PRS and PPL? Okay, great question. So if you've already registered your songs with PRS, that's absolutely fine. When you add them to the Songtrust dashboard, PRS will be notified that we are now administering those songs, and we will make the registrations everywhere else for you as well. So it's absolutely fine. You just still add them on the Songtrust dashboard. I should say though that then going forward, you don't have to go to the PRS website and register them there as well. You just register them once on Songtrust and we will register them with our global network. PPL, that's on the master side. So again, not to be confused, it's not sort of in the publishing admin universe. So, you know, you still want to have PPL membership and be managing your rights on the master side. Let's just have a look. Do you handle the creative side of publishing? No, so we don't take sync rights and we don't offer creative services. We're just charging an admin fee and providing global publishing administration covering 150 countries and territories. So what a lot of our clients will do is work with a sync agent, or even sometimes a few sync agents. You know, you might have one in LA, you might have one in London, so you're getting kind of ads and Netflix and films. And you know, you're free to handle that yourself. We don't take those rights. Okay. Throw any more in there if there's any more. Oh, hang on, I need to scroll down a bit. So will all the song splits on songs we then register with you automatically follow our PRS template? Yeah, I mean, you need the splits that you register with Songtrust need to match, you know, what you've already put on PRS. So if you think every song totals 100%, so you need to make sure that the co-writer splits and your writer splits and the names are all correct. And then we'll be able to register it, you know, globally. And if you've already registered it on PRS, then they will be notified that we are administering your works going forward. How are we doing for time? Let's just have a look. Oh, great. We're still good. Anybody else want to throw any questions in? As I said, I'm very happy to answer kind of specific questions to do with, you know, any, I think one of the questions in the box now is quite specific to someone's own circumstances, a question that they've asked PRS. So if you want to just email me if you've got specific questions, then it's lbaker@songtrust.com. Just got a few more here. Let's just have a read. Would I list Songtrust or PRS as my PRO when submitting a song to a library music company? So Songtrust is not your PRO. Your PRO is still whichever society you're affiliated with. So probably if you're in the UK, it's PRS. But what you will see is when you use Songtrust, your songs will show up as administered by Songtrust at the various different society repertoires. So there's a question that says, we've been looking at TuneCore, do you do what they do, i.e. get our songs onto iTunes? No, so we're not a distributor, we're a publishing administrator. So you'll work with a distributor, which could be, you know, TuneCore or InGrooves or Proper or AWOL or, you know, any of those companies on the master side to get your music onto the digital services. We'll be collecting the royalties due to you as a writer on the publishing side. So if you're an artist and you're a writer, you know, you're going to have either a label or a distributor on the master side, and you're going to have, you want to have a publishing administrator like Songtrust or a publisher on the publishing side, the composition side. Cool. Okay. So hang on, let's just have a quick look. if we're already registered with MCPS, do same rules apply? I don't know what you mean by rules exactly, but yeah, the principles are the same. So, you know, there's a global, you're going to be earning royalties all over the world. And if you want to be sure to collect them, you know, wherever they're due, whether they're mechanical or performance royalties, then the best way to do it is to be registered directly, for your songs to be registered in all of those territories around the world. So of course, if you wanted to do what Songtrust offers, then you could try and join 53 societies around the world. But then obviously you've got to register your works 53 times, and you know there's a lot of cost involved in joining even a handful of those societies. So Songtrust is taking away all of that admin and all of that cost and providing the service of registering your songs globally. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up there. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I know that there are a few specific questions in there that I haven't answered. So drop me an email and we'll have a chat about your particular circumstances if you have more questions. Really want to say thank you to the Ivors Academy for having me today and for all the work that they do to advocate and you know, empower and to support and champion and celebrate, of course, the songwriter community. The awards as well are very amazing. So yeah, I very much hope that we can do something in person in the future, and that I can meet all of the members and, you know, stay involved in the great work that the Ivors Academy is doing. So, and I'm sorry you didn't get to see my cats. They didn't pop in today, but never mind, maybe next time. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And I think that's that. So I believe